Remember all that buzz about AlphaFold?
Yeah.
That AI that predicts how proteins are shaped? The one that won a Nobel Prize and completely changed how we look at proteins? Well, get this. Its successor, AlphaFold3, just went open source.
Yeah.
And it's causing everybody to ask, what does this mean for the future of drug making?
It's a big deal for sure.
Yeah.
AlphaFold 2 was already impressive, but AlphaFold 3 takes it to a whole new level.
Oh, wow.
Like going from a magnifying glass to one of those super high-powered microscopes.
Wow.
And we're not just predicting shapes of single proteins anymore. This thing can model entire complexes, including how proteins interact with DNA, RNA. And here's the really exciting part. For drug making, even potential drugs.
Whoa, so AlphaFold3 isn't just predicting shapes. It's showing us how all these building blocks of life fit together.
Right.
It's like having a 3D blueprint of the whole molecular world.
Exactly.
So what does that mean for drug discovery? What are the implications there?
Well, think of it this way. Before AlphaFold, researchers were basically working in the dark when it came to understanding how proteins interacted with potential drug molecules.
Ah, I see.
It was a lot of trial and error, very time-consuming and super expensive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know.
Okay, so AlphaFold is shedding light on those interactions,
Right.
which is obviously a big deal for drug discovery.
Yes.
But before we dive too deep into that, let's rewind a bit. DeepMind, the folks who created AlphaFold, initially kept AlphaFold3's code secret.
Yeah.
Why all the secrecy, and why did they finally decide to open it up?
Well, there were some pretty strong arguments on both sides of that whole open source debate.
Oh, I bet.
A lot of scientists felt that keeping the code closed went against the whole idea of open science.
Right.
You know, they argued that it hindered reproducibility, transparency, and collaboration in research.
It's like trying to bake a cake without the recipe, right?
Exactly.
You might get something that looks like a cake, but you don't know exactly how it was made or if you can reliably make it again. And in this case, we're talking about potentially life-saving medical discoveries.
Exactly.
The stakes are high.
The stakes are very high. DeepMind, on the other hand, they were concerned about protecting their commercial ventures.
Right.
They've got a sister company using AlphaFold3 for drug discovery, and they were worried about giving their competitors an unfair advantage.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's that classic dilemma, the benefits of open science versus protecting commercial interests.
It's a tough one. It sounds like the pressure from the scientific community eventually tipped the scales towards open science, though.
It did.
Yeah.
There was even an open letter published in Nature criticizing the lack of transparency.
Oh, wow.
And shortly after that letter, DeepMind announced that they were going to release an open source version for academic use.
Okay, so they're sharing the recipe,
Mm-hmm.
at least with academic researchers.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean they've given up complete control.
Right. Exactly. There are still restrictions on commercial use and access to the training weights. Those parameters that make the AI so powerful requires approval, and it's limited to academic researchers.
So they're keeping a pretty tight grip on the commercial potential. But at least researchers can now explore and build upon the code.
Right.
So they finally open-sourced AlphaFold3. What does that actually mean for the future of drug making? Is this the revolution everyone's hoping for?
Well, it definitely has the potential to be a major turning point.
Yeah.
Imagine being able to test thousands of potential drug candidates virtually before you even step foot in a lab.
Oh, wow.
That's what AlphaFold3 allowed you to do.
That would save so much time and money.
It would.
And potentially lead to new treatments for diseases that have stumped us for years.
Absolutely. By predicting how proteins interact with drug-like molecules, it paves the way for faster and more efficient drug design. It's like a virtual screening process.
Right.
Helping researchers weed out the duds before they waste precious resources on dead ends.
Can you give us a concrete example of how AlphaFold3 has already proven its worth in drug discovery?
Sure, there's a fascinating example from the research that describes AlphaFold3.
Okay.
They used it to predict the interaction between a protein called PRRCN and a clinical stage inhibitor called LGK974.
Okay.
This means that LGK974 has already shown potential in preclinical studies, and it's moving towards human trials.
So it's a drug candidate that's already showing some promise.
Yes.
And AlphaFold3 was able to predict how it interacts with its target protein.
Yes, and what's remarkable is that AlphaFold3's prediction was incredibly accurate, matching the experimentally determined structure.
So it aced the test.
It did.
And I've read that AlphaFold3 is even more accurate than traditional methods for predicting these interactions.
That's right. It's actually surpassing traditional physics-based methods in predicting these protein-ligand interactions, like the one with LGK974.
Wow.
The AI is outperforming our best physics-based models, and that's huge.
That is pretty mind-blowing. So AlphaFold3 is proving itself to be a powerful tool for predicting drug interactions. How else could this impact drug development?
Well, it can also model antibodies and their interactions with antigens.
Quick refresher for our listener, antibodies are those amazing proteins our immune system uses to fight off invaders, right?
Right.
And antigens are the things on those invaders that trigger the immune response.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And by accurately predicting these interactions, AlphaFold3 could significantly speed up the development of new antibody-based therapies,
Okay.
which are already a major force in treating diseases like cancer and autoimmune disorders.
Okay, so we've got faster drug design, potentially cheaper medicines, and new treatments for diseases that have stumped us for years.
Right.
But we also have to talk about AlphaFold3's limitations, right?
Right.
No AI is perfect.
Of course, it's important to remember that AlphaFold3 isn't a magic bullet.
Sure.
While it's incredibly powerful, it does have its quirks and limitations.
Like what? What are some things researchers need to keep in mind when they're using AlphaFold3?
Well, for one, it's not always perfect when it comes to molecular handedness.
Handedness.
Yeah, you see, molecules can exist in two forms that are mirror images of each other, like your left and right hand.
Okay.
And sometimes AlphaFold3 gets this chirality wrong.
Ah, chirality.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that from chemistry class. Why is it such a big deal if AlphaFold mixes up its left and right?
Because in chemistry, those two mirror image forms, called enantiomers, can have totally different biological effects.
Oh, wow.
One enantiomer might be a life-saving drug, while the other is completely inactive or even toxic.
Oh, God.
So if AlphaFold predicts the wrong enantiomer, it could lead researchers down the wrong path.
Yeah, that's a good reminder that we can't just blindly trust the AI. What other limitations should we be aware of?
Another issue is that it can sometimes hallucinate structure in regions of a protein that are actually disordered or flexible.
So it's like the AI is seeing things that aren't really there, filling in the blanks, so to speak.
In a way, yes. It might predict a well-defined structure in a region of a protein that's actually just flopping about randomly. This is especially tricky in parts of proteins that only become ordered when they interact with another molecule.
I see.
So while AlphaFold3 can give us an incredibly detailed picture of a protein, we need to remember that it's still just a model,
Right.
a representation of reality, and it's not always perfect.
It sounds like AlphaFold3 can be a bit overzealous in its structural predictions.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. But it's important to remember that these limitations don't negate its power.
Here.
It's just a reminder that AI tools work best alongside good old-fashioned lab experiments.
Right.
We need to use them as guides, not oracles.
So it's all about finding that balance between the power of AI and the wisdom of real-world experiments. Now, we've talked a lot about how AlphaFold3 could accelerate the early stages of drug discovery. But what about the bigger picture? How might this impact the pharmaceutical industry as a whole?
Well, it's fascinating to consider how this technology might reshape the pharmaceutical landscape.
Yeah.
On one hand, it could level the playing field, giving smaller companies and research labs a chance to compete with the big pharma giants.
Because even small teams could leverage the power of AlphaFold3.
Exactly. Access to this powerful AI tool could empower those smaller players to make significant contributions to drug discovery. We could see a more diverse and innovative ecosystem emerge, with new players bringing fresh ideas and approaches to the table.
More players, more ideas, more potential breakthroughs. Like the sound of that. But what about the potential downsides? Could AlphaFold3 actually stifle innovation by giving a few big players an even bigger advantage?
That's certainly a possibility. It could intensify competition with companies racing to leverage AlphaFold3's capabilities to gain an edge in the market.
Yeah.
And those with the resources to invest heavily in AI and computational drug discovery could pull even further ahead.
So it could be a bit of a double-edged sword. What about the potential for collaboration? Could AlphaFold3 actually bring researchers and companies together?
Absolutely. The open sourcing of AlphaFold3 could foster a whole new era of collaboration as researchers from different institutions and companies come together to share data expertise and resources.
Oh, wow.
Imagine teams working together to refine the AI models, develop new algorithms, and apply this technology to a wider range of diseases.
Yeah, collaboration is key, especially when we're talking about something as complex and important as drug discovery.
Exactly. The open source nature of AlphaFold3 could act as a catalyst, breaking down those traditional barriers and bringing together diverse minds to tackle some of the world's most pressing health challenges.
Now, we've talked a lot about AlphaFold, But DeepMind isn't the only player in this AI-powered protein structure prediction game, right?
That's right. While DeepMind was grappling with that whole open source debate, other companies and research teams were busy developing their own protein structure prediction tools, many of them inspired by AlphaFold.
So a whole ecosystem of AlphaFold-inspired AI tools is emerging.
It is, and what's particularly interesting is that many of these new tools are fully open source with no commercial restrictions.
Oh, wow.
They're embracing the philosophy of open science from the get-go.
Can you give us some examples of these open source AlphaFold rivals?
Sure. There's a company called LIGO Biosciences
Yeah.
that has released a restriction-free version of AlphaFold3, meaning anyone can use it for any purpose, even commercially.
Interesting.
It's a truly open source tool.
That sounds promising. Are there any limitations with this open source version?
Well, it doesn't have all the features of the full AlphaFold3.
Okay.
For instance, it doesn't yet have the same ability to model drug interactions.
Gotcha.
So there's a bit of a trade-off, open access, but with some limitations in functionality.
It sounds like this open source movement is gaining momentum. Are there other notable examples?
There's a project called OpenFold3 led by a computational biologist at Columbia University, which aims to create a fully open source model that allows anyone, including drug companies, to retrain it using their own proprietary data.
That sounds like it could be a game changer for companies that want to customize these AI tools for their specific needs.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we have the tech giants.
Uh-huh.
Baidu, the Chinese search engine giant, and ByteDance, the company behind TikTok, have also developed their own AlphaFold-inspired models.
So the race to predict protein structures is going global. What does this mean for the future of the field?
I think it signifies a major shift in how we approach drug discovery and scientific research in general.
Yeah.
We're seeing a democratization of these powerful AI tools, which has the potential to accelerate progress across a wide range of fields.
It's exciting to think about all the potential applications of this technology. It's like AlphaFold 3 is a Swiss Army knife for molecular biology.
It's true. And the applications extend far beyond just drug discovery.
What are some other interesting applications you've seen?
Well, in a recent protein design contest, the winners used AlphaFold2 to design brand new proteins that could bind to a specific cancer target.
Wait, so they designed proteins from scratch using AI?
Yes. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities for protein engineering.
Wow.
We could design proteins with tailor-made functions like breaking down pollutants, creating new materials, or even developing more efficient biofuels.
It sounds like the possibilities are endless.
Another study that stood out used AlphaFold2 to identify a key protein involved in sperm binding to egg cells.
Wow.
It's amazing to think that a tool designed to predict protein structures could have such a profound impact on our understanding of fertility and reproduction.
Yeah, it really highlights the power of basic research and how unexpected discoveries can emerge when we delve into the complexities of the molecular world. What do you think will be the most exciting development to come from AlphaFold being open sourced?
It's hard to say for sure. I think the most exciting developments will likely be the ones we haven't even imagined yet.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of open source innovation.
I
I think John Jumper, one of the leaders of the AlphaFold team, put it best when he said, people will use it in weird ways. Sometimes it will fail, and sometimes it will succeed.
love that.
Mm.
Embrace the weirdness. Embrace the failures. Because somewhere in that mix lies the potential for truly groundbreaking discoveries. It's like we've given researchers a superpower and we're just waiting to see what incredible feats they'll accomplish with it.
That's the spirit of scientific exploration. We're on the cusp of a new era in science, and AI is playing a leading role.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of AlphaFold 3, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from this episode?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we're entering a new era of scientific discovery, one where AI isn't just a tool for data analysis, but a partner in research, helping us unravel the mysteries of life at an unprecedented pace.
And who knows, maybe someday we'll be looking back at the open sourcing of AlphaFold 3 as a pivotal moment in the history of medicine, the moment that unlocked a floodgate of life-saving breakthroughs.
I hope so.
It's a future worth striving for. Yeah, it really is exciting to think about what the future holds. You know, now that AlphaFold 3 is out there in the open, so to speak, researchers all over the world have access to its power, and who knows what kind of incredible breakthroughs are going to come out of that.
Yeah, it really feels like we're at the beginning of a new era, you know? AlphaFold 3 and all those other AI tools that it's inspired are really giving us a glimpse into the inner workings of proteins, which, as we know, are the fundamental building blocks of life.
It's kind of wild to think that this AI, which started out as just a way to predict the shapes of proteins, could have such a big impact in so many different areas.
Yeah, it really shows how powerful basic research is. Sometimes the most groundbreaking discoveries come from just exploring those basic scientific questions without even thinking about a specific application.
Right.
And then those discoveries lead to all these amazing innovations and technologies that nobody could have ever predicted.
Yeah. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should you even care about AlphaFold 3 and the fact that it's now open source?
Well, on a practical level, it means we have a powerful new weapon in the fight against disease. Faster drug discovery could lead to new treatments for conditions that have been around for centuries.
Yeah.
It could mean more effective cancer therapies, new antibiotics that can tackle drug-resistant bacteria, maybe even personalized medicines that are tailor-made for your unique genetic makeup.
So it's not just about scientific progress for the sake of progress. It's about actually improving human health and well-being.
Exactly.
And that's something we can all get behind.
Absolutely. But even beyond those practical implications, there's also just this sense of wonder and possibility that comes with these kinds of breakthroughs.
Yeah, for sure.
AlphaFold 3 is really giving us this deeper understanding of the molecular world,
Yeah.
revealing all those intricate interactions between proteins that are happening all the time to make life possible.
Yeah. It's like we're finally able to peek behind the curtain and see the machinery of life in action.
Exactly. And that knowledge, that understanding it, has the power to change the world in ways that we can't even imagine yet.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of AlphaFold 3 and the future of drug making, what's the one big takeaway you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think the most important thing to remember is to stay curious. The world of science is constantly evolving with new discoveries and breakthroughs happening all the time. So keep asking those questions. Keep exploring. Keep an open mind because who knows what incredible innovations are waiting for us just around the corner.
And on that note, until next time, stay curious.